Hello, and welcome to Monday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Cott. I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. But I'm especially pleased to be joined by the one and only Michael Gannon as well. Mick, how's it going?
Just made it in nick of time there, boys. Run up the stairs.
We've had technical gremlins, we've had all sorts of issues, but we're here.
Yeah.
Here to entertain the masses.
Exactly.
I think the best place for us to start, Mick, you were at Lennoxtown today, speaking with Brendan Rodgers. Celtic, of course, play Dundee at Dens Park tomorrow night. But what sort of form was the Celtic boss in today?
As you'd expect for a man who's 15 points clear in the top of the league. Very kind of relaxed and jovial. He's in good spirits. Yeah, I mean, obviously the team news wise looks like Nicholas Kuhn is going to back for Dens, having missed the weekend. Dyson Maida, I think, probably won't, but the weekend's looking likely, so nothing really dramatic there. But yeah, it was pretty a relaxed affair. The most interesting thing, we was asked about, obviously, the kind of a lot of transfer chat, obviously in January, asked about comings and goings, and obviously there's been interest in some of these players, and kind of lukewarm kind of talk about kind of Carter Vickers and Bayer Leverkusen. There was talk about Kyogo obviously last week with MLS, carry on with that kind of erroneous website article. Nicholas Kuhn, another one, was talked about before the window. So there's a few things bubbling in. So we was asked about the kind of the prospect of players maybe getting bids come in for his players, and his response was quite interesting. He just basically said that they don't want to sell any of these guys. They want to keep them for the time being, but they're also prepared for any eventuality. So he's quite realistic and quite pragmatic. He knows that if serious money gets slapped on the table for these guys, Celtic have to consider these things. But what the key to it is having contingency plans in place. So he's certainly not panicking at the prospect of bids coming in, not welcoming them, but he's not particularly fussed about it, not scared about it. I think that was a phrase he used. He's not scared of speculation.
Yeah.
So that was fairly interesting. In terms of incomings, he still is looking. They had one or two, I think, in this window. I think they will go, as I mentioned before. I think it might take a bit of time in this window. Maybe see it towards the end. But yeah, so he seems to be in a relaxed mood in terms of where the team is and also where the squad is in terms of the transfer window.
What's your gut telling you, Mick, about potential offers for Celtic players? That the Kyogo thing just seems a little bit mysterious, doesn't it? It felt a little bit odd last week. And are you half anticipating something?
Listen, if someone comes in with a £10 million bid for Kyogo, who's 29 years old, it's going to have to be really thought about. Because listen, that's the Celtic model is that you bring these players in, they get success, and they get sold. To kind of prevent that from happening, kind of defeats the whole purpose of the whole operation.
But midway through the season.
Yeah, that's the key. I don't think it will happen in this one.
Champions League still in play. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure that this one would be.
I don't think so either. But you also got to. I think something like that. I wouldn't think so at this stage. No, I wouldn't think so either. I think they can resist it. In the summer, it's a different matter altogether.
Yeah.
But it's cash. I mean, you're talking about a £25 million bid plus in for Kuhn. That's going to kind of move the dial slightly, isn't it? That's going to give people a cause to have something to think about. But I think Rodgers touched on it as well. It's come down to the players as well. I think if that kind of thing turns a head or two, Rodgers doesn't want a player who wants to be going.
Yeah.
I think he'd rather say, right, if you want to go, I'll take the money and I'll go and get somebody else who wants to be here. So I think there's a lot that at play as well. I think that the base point is they don't want to sell these guys just now. In the summer, different story. Now, definitely not. But again, the market forces it sometimes, isn't it? You can't always choose. Listen, this time last year, Celtic resisted bids for Matt O'Reilly, but they were lowball bids. Mm-hmm. They were the bids that, talking Atletico Madrid, the money wasn't there that Celtic wanted. They wanted that 25 million barrier to get broken, and they were prepared to sit tight. And the player, in fairness, was also prepared to sit tight and wait for it as well. And he didn't get his head turned. I thought he was exceptional second half of the season. And fair play to him, because a lot of guys I thought the Madrid offer would have been very tempting. Yeah. So it's a lot of factors at play in the transfer market. But I said there's a reluctance to sell just now anyway.
Yeah, and by the way, there is absolutely no financial necessity to sell either, Mick. That's a comfortable place to be in.
But it's not really. I don't think it's always about just the money in the bank coming in. It's also about the model you sell to players that you sign.
Yeah.
So if you sign a player and say, "Come to us, win a few trophies, you'll be one of the favourites." But when the time comes, if a bid comes in that you're interested in, we'll sell you. That's their selling point. If you start to deny players those moves when they come up, you think, well, what? You're not going to attract those players in the first place. You're going to block them from the moves that they're kind of sold on.
Yeah, so, you actually. I think what Celtic do is they hold up the likes of Matt O'Reilly as the example, don't they? And you know, Van Dijk before him, and Wanyama, and all these guys, and they say, look, this is what happens. You come here, you get showcased, you play in Europe, you win some trophies, and then off you pop. And we won't stand in your way. We won't be a barrier to that. And that is the model. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, listen, Celtic have sold guys in January that you don't expect. And when Juranovic leaving in the January a few years ago I thought was a strange one, and I actually thought they maybe sold them for too cheaply. Mm-hmm. But so it can happen. But the key is when Juranovic was sold, Celtic had Arthur Johnson lined up.
An upgrade, yeah.
In the World Cup, they're the World Cup performing player coming in right into the team who has arguably gone on and become one of the better players in the squad. So that's the key. The key is to have that, and that's what Roger's talking about today, having that contingency plan in place that if something pops up that you maybe don't expect, that you're ready to act to counter it. So yeah, it's a pretty relaxing environment at Celtic just now. Interesting to see how this window is, obviously with Paul Tisdale coming in, his first kind of main window. I know he was advising last summer, so interesting to see what the kind of the mood is around him by the end of the window and see how he's getting on. But yeah, it's all a bit kind of relaxed at Celtic at the moment. I don't think they're too worried about these kind of things at this point in time.
Well, I mean, in terms of players coming in, the Celtic fans are getting a little bit excited in the comments section. In particular, one name that's kind of doing the rounds on social media today is that of Louis Barry. He's the boy that's at he's at Aston Villa. He was on loan at Stockport. Earlier this season, 16 goals in 24 games for them. He was at Barcelona's academy previously as well. I mean, look, this is one of the comments we've had in. We're signing Louis Barry. We should at least keep it fair for the rest of the teams competing in the Champions League. And Luke McGrath says as well, been linked with Toure, Kvistgaarden, Ossister and Barry. My preference would be Kvistgaarden. I mean, we've talked about players going out, Mike, but do you anticipate any significant incomings over the next couple of weeks?
I think there'll be at least two coming in. Yeah. I think they will bring in a wide player.
Yeah.
I think that's a big priority as a wide man. I think you see it just now with obviously James Forrest injured as well, but Kuhn and Maida are the main men. And after that, I think Louis Palma will go. I think also last week there was a bit of a family bereavement that had to miss the weekend. He's back in the squad, I think, for tomorrow night. But I think I would expect him to move out at the end of the month. There's Yang there who, again, Roger's talking about him today. He's talking him up. I say talking him up. It was very complimentary, but also understanding that there's got to be an end product with Yang, and it's not quite there yet. He's very much a work in progress. So I think they're a wee bit short in those areas. Not an awful lot short, but a wee bit short. They could do with something in there. So I think I'd imagine a wide player come in. Interesting, Johnny Kenny coming back from loan and getting a chance at the weekend, doing pretty well, running about and causing a few problems. I think he might be. I think Rodgers wants a third striker, but the third striker is a difficult one because you can't keep that guy happy. Hard to keep him too happy. So he might be the one that is going to be the young third striker that's kind of hungry and you can chuck him on here and there and try and chase a goal. So yeah, that might save him in the market, but I still think that's an area you'll probably look at.
And a left back.
The left back. Well, left back is an issue for the summer, I guess. But I'd imagine they would like to get nailed down now.
Well, you don't think Kieran Tierney will be arriving anytime soon?
At this point in time, I think it's more likely to be the summer on a pre-contract rather than now. They don't really need him right this minute.
He's just going to go and sit in his bum for 6 months then at Arsenal. He knows that. Celtic know it. Arsenal know it.
He's going to sit in his bum and make 110 grand a week, Keith. So are Celtic picking up that tab until you get a contract?
It's worth mentioning as well. Tierney last night, he came on for 6 minutes in extra time for Arsenal. He did put in 2 really good crosses, and he was trending on Twitter overnight down south. Arsenal fans really like him. They really rate him. This isn't like a kind of shot past it, Tierney that's up for grabs.
if
No,
Kieran Tierney's going to come to Celtic in January, he'll need to crack a deal with Arsenal.
Yeah.
He's got 6 months left in his contract, and it's a lot of money still there, sitting there for him. So he'll need to crack a deal with Arsenal, and then Celtic maybe can pick up some of that slack. But they're not going to spend that kind of money in January. We've got 2 left backs in the books just now. It wouldn't really make much financial sense, really. I
think it makes sense. I think it makes personal sense for Kieran Tierney. I think Kieran, for various reasons, wants to come back to Glasgow, mate. I think he knows.
In the comments there, that's I was just going to bring up. People saying he might go to another EPL club, but you think he definitely wants to be close to home?
I think he wants to be close to home. Yep. I also think he wants to play for Celtic again. And he's a wealthy young man. And you know, what's the great thing about Kieran Tierney when he turned up for one of the games at Arsenal with his boots in a Tesco bag? This isn't a guy who is money motivated. Of course, everybody likes to earn, and he's earned very well. But I think for personal reasons, for emotional reasons, the tie-in with Celtic, I think this is a deal that Kieran Tierney can't do quickly enough. So I see what Mick's saying. There are 2 left backs at the club just now. But I still come back to it. I'd be very surprised if there's not a discussion to be had. I think it suits all parties. I think it would suit Arsenal. I think it suits Celtic. And I think it suits the player.
It wouldn't suit his agent. If you're Kieran his agent, he'd be cracking up.
That's a fair point. Mick, I know you
even bye to massive sums of money.
Mick, I know you've got time constraints. I know you've got a lot going on today. Before we
He's got gymnastics again.
Monday night charts. Monday's my gymnastics tonight. I've got my triple back somersaults to practice.
Spandex Monday.
Spandex. That is leotard Monday.
If you could do your next appearance in the leotard, we'd really appreciate it.
No, we wouldn't. Nobody would appreciate that. Let's not do that, man.
I think that's on a different kind of site rather than YouTube.
Mix only fans.
It's a very niche market, that one.
Yeah. Well, we'll put the link, Mick, to your OnlyFans in the comments section if anyone wants to.
Given my diet, it's my only scrans. He's had that lined up for weeks, I bet. But that was just coming. That's a live broadcast.
Just before I let you both go, just very quickly, I wanted to get both your take on Luis Palma that you mentioned, Mick. I feel a bit sorry for him. Like last season when he was in the team, scored against Atletico Madrid, Lazio, looked really good. I know he's no Maida, but in terms of a backup, I think Celtic might struggle to find someone of that calibre.
It just doesn't fit the way they play. It's not the fact that he's a poor player. I think he just doesn't fit the way that Rodgers plays. He likes his
lack of pace.
Lack of pace and intensity. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be pressing defenders and the way that Rodgers likes to play. He's more of a kind of cultured player, likes cutting inside and all this kind of stuff. It just doesn't fit that kind of style, unfortunately for him. Am I getting slaughtered here?
Yeah.
Mark Fairfield in the comments saying leotard, I might need to have a lie down. He might mean that in a good way, Mick. You never know.
Are you looking to ship subscribers?
Actually, Mark's on my only scrans. Don't worry about that. He's one of the top subscribers.
Brilliant. Listen, Mick, we'll let you go. Thanks so much for joining us on the Hotline Live. Really appreciate it as always.
Brilliant.
Get the leotard looked out.
Enjoy your gymnastics, Michael.
See you later, boys. Mr. Tumble, right enough.
Thanks, Mick. And Keith, just to underline the strength and depth we've got here at Record Sport on the Hotline Live, Mick goes out and he's brought in the one and only Fraser Wilson. Fraser, how's it going?
Oh, not bad. How do I follow that, boys?
I'm not sure it can be done, Fraser.
Do you own a leotard at all? Or?
What's that?
You own a leotard that you could, or something similar that you could maybe?
I'll leave it to your imagination what I'm wearing in the bottom half here, mate. But I've got no plans to leave the house today, that's for sure. Just here to complete the Specky Quartet.
That's it. Sponsored by Specsavers, this edition of the Hotline Live.
Actually, that was in danger of getting dark there a little bit, Fraser.
Yeah. Right, Fraser,
we dirty den sitting there.
Anyway, as we try and get that image out of our mind, Fraser, you were at Ibrox yesterday for Rangers against St Johnstone. 3-1 win for Rangers, but the football really wasn't the talking point, was it?
Secondary, I think. But before kick-off, we were all just waiting for the 55th minute to see what was going to happen. And to be fair, it didn't disappoint, did it? It was a really, really strange atmosphere. I think we've all been in Ibrox to cover games where it's got really toxic. I can go back to Michael Beale's last game last season against Aberdeen when it was the toxicity levels in that game were through the roof. What are you laughing at, Keith?
No, sorry.
A
I put the comment up there. We're in danger of getting a hard drive check. Sorry, Fraser.
I take these specs off. I can't read those. Listen. Aye. Anyway, I can't mind what I was saying now.
55th
yes.
minute.
Yesterday, not toxic, the complete opposite. It was very much a kind of silent protest for the first half, you know. And to be honest, it's quite effective, you know. It wasn't quite back to the COVID years, but you could hear every shout for the players. There was nothing coming for the stands at all. And in terms of making a point through utter silence, it certainly got through. 3 goals, barely raised a cheer. But it was quite funny that these fans sitting with their mouths clamped kind of forgot to keep it that way whenever they didn't like a decision that came to the referee, Ross Hardy, you know.
Well, they reserve the right to always pick an official. That's
the only thing that raised more than a murmur the whole first half. But look, we're all just waiting to fast forward to the 55th minute to see if the Union Bears and how many others would kind of follow through with their threat to walk out. And first of all, the very fact St Johnstone scored in 54 minutes, you just couldn't write that stuff, you know, as if to say, here, take this goal with you, lads. There you go. You can't write the irony. But then the actual walkout that came a minute later kind of backfired as well. It had been so widely publicised, everyone was sitting just waiting for it. But when it did arrive, there was so many of them tried to get out, they kind of forgot that the exits wouldn't be big enough for them all to just suddenly disappear. So it was almost like forming an orderly queue, lads, you know. All the while, the rest of the stadium had decided to stay back and support the team, gave them absolute dog's abuse. So I don't think it quite went the way the Union Bears hoped. And it certainly smacked of divides moving from between the support base and the board to actually just between the support base themselves. So a bit of a mess, all in all. But
that sort of encapsulates the whole situation at Ibrox, doesn't it? A bit of a mess.
It does.
You know, and these guys aren't even. I don't think the main kind of target now in terms of protesting is even Clement. I think it's wider than that. It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
It's a dissatisfaction with the club. It's a dissatisfaction with the regime in charge. The biggest danger, as we discussed, is that it becomes kind of like an apathy and a shrug of the shoulders. And do you know what? There's better things to do on a Saturday afternoon, because you might not get them back again. And bear in mind that this is a club now that's been walking around in circles now for the best part of 10 years since Dave King and Paul Murray got inside to rescue it. It has been a form of fan ownership. It hasn't worked. It's delivered one title. Rangers are going nowhere. And I think that, you know, when it gets into a situation like this, the call now for Rangers, and I've said it over and over for a period of time now, it actually, they're right. I'm not a big fan of ultras and the ultra culture, but these guys are actually right. Rangers do require regime change. Yeah. It needs a recalibration. The sort of bowling club mentality at the top of the staircase, it has to be obliterated. Rangers need something new. They need something fresh. They need something contemporary, modern, outward-looking, all the things that this Rangers board isn't. So I can completely get why the fans have got to this point. But then you've got this kind of side issue, is that there actually are... Rangers fans, by their nature, aren't a very militant bunch. Celtic fans are more militant. You kind of get the feeling there's a vast majority of Rangers fans that just, you know, they just want to go along, and as long as their team's winning on Saturday afternoon on the pitch, then everything's hunky-dory. But the young crew are clearly disenfranchised now for a variety of reasons, but it feels stale. Rangers feel stale. So I think these guys are right to be calling for change. I genuinely do think there was an old banner that came out around about the time when David Murray was in charge, that Rangers fans deserve better. Well, when you think about what these Rangers fans have been through over the last 12 years or so, they probably do. It's probably fair. But it's just going to be fascinating to see if there's any prospect of that happening.
It's not often I say this, Keith, but the comment section seems to be agreeing with you as well. I mean, Darren here says it's not very often I agree with you, Keith, but today I am fair play to the Union Bears. The board have been disgusting to the Rangers fans. D-Man says, in fairness to the Union Bears, they're the ones who spend time and a fortune following the team everywhere, which I think is a fair point as well. Rangers Easy OK Champions.
Not the only ones, though.
Of course, aye. Rangers Easy OK says, feels like two different supports at the minute. The ones who stayed were definitely majority older, and the ones who left, myself included, were younger and haven't had any taste of sustained success. So it definitely speaks to what you're saying, Fraser, a very kind of divided feel at the minute.
Aye, look, them and the rest of Scottish football haven't had any sustained success since the days of Walter Smith. I know you're talking about Walter Smith yesterday, but I mean, what can you go back other than the Steven Gerrard COVID year? Only Alec McLeish and Dick Advocat have won titles in the last 36 years, nearly 40 years for Rangers. So they're falling so far behind Celtic. That's the worry. If you're talking for regime change, Keith, are you talking about the guys that have just come in? You're talking about the new chairman, the new CEO, just underneath that? I mean, do these guys deserve to get a chance to put their footprint on the club?
Well,
Is
I
it
think what's
enough to take a step backwards to try and take two forwards? I've always had the impression that this season it's almost like Clement has been told to clean up his squad, to reduce the age, to reduce the wage bracket, to try and bring in, along with the recruitment team, to try and bring in some future assets that will make them serious money. And if they can bring in a piece of silverware on top of that, that's a bonus. Now, I don't think anyone would admit to that, but you wonder why he's still in place given the shocking away form.
I think he's still in place because
he said to me this season.
He's still in place by default, Fraser, on account of the fact that when it was at its worst, there was one financial issue which Patrick Stewart has denied, but two, there was nobody there that could actually pull the trigger on him. And I actually think it came very, very close, maybe round about the start of December. But they stuck with, and then Patrick Stewart came in, the new chairman. Am I talking about them as part of regime change? Well, no, I'm talking about, if some fresh eyes were to come in at boardroom level, then, these guys are only just in the door. You'd want to give them a shot. You'd want to see, have they got a vision of their own? Are they capable of moving it forward? But yeah, I mean, do you know what? I think if Rangers were to get fresh eyes on the inside, then, does anybody really care what happens to Patrick Stewart or Fraser Thornton? They're just more bodies, it's just more names. That Rangers can't continue to run in such a myopic kind of fashion, where nobody's looking beyond the end of their nose. It really needs something more far-sighted, exciting, something to reconnect with the supporters who have had enough. Mm-hmm. They're tired of watching the same mistakes being made by the same people and ending with the same results, which is hardly anything to put in the trophy cabinet.
I think that's why it's quite surprising this independent review that started today is bringing in, they're bringing in outsiders apparently to have a root and branch review of all things Rangers, the footballing department. A wee bit strange given that Patrick Stewart's just come in, Fraser Thornton's just come in. They finally got bodies in all those positions that were lacking in the first half of the season. Why are these guys not sorting out the problems? It's almost like they don't trust the guys that are in position there. Mm-hmm.
That might be pretty prudent and astute as well. I'm not sure that I would. I think it's long overdue. What I would say about it is I don't understand why it wasn't commissioned on day one. It just seems like a bit of a waste of time. Why now? Why start next Monday? Why or on Monday?
On day one of the chief executive.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. Point.
It just seems like, because they said it could be anywhere between 6 and 12 weeks. Well, how long's it been there? That's 3 weeks gone.
4 weeks today, isn't it?
4 weeks. Yeah. So I don't know. It's but what I do know is that I genuinely feel it has reached a point now where it's so stale. I think even the guys that maybe enjoyed having that little bit of power and being inside the command centre and being a Rangers director, sitting in the director's box and, you know, cutting about in the blue room. I think as much as that was attractive to some of these guys, I think the more it's becoming a slog now. And I think it's becoming a drain for them. So you wonder, is there an appetite? Is there an appetite to affect real, you know, fundamental change at boardroom level? I don't know. I wonder if the guys that thought this would be a great deal of fun have realised that it's not really all that much fun when you keep taking second prizes off Celtic and you're the guys responsible for it. Yeah.
Do you know what must really frustrate? It must be the fact that I genuinely think the last two Old Firm games, Rangers have had the better of Celtic. I genuinely do. Nobody will deny that 2 weeks ago they had the better of them, but I honestly thought for 120 minutes, over 120 minutes at Hampden, they edged that game ever so slightly, if not matched them toe for toe, and obviously lost a penalty shout, which is an utter lottery. But then they just go and ship those points they have on the road to I mean, what? No disrespect, but to St Mirren, Dundee, Motherwell, Hibs, maybe one of those would have been bad enough, but 4 in a row, it must be soul destroying for the Rangers fans, because we could be having a completely different conversation here if they'd taken care of that business.
But see, sorry, go on, Fraser. Sorry.
No. That's why league titles are won over the course of the season. That's why it's a marathon, not a slog. There's no point turning up for the big games. You have to do it every single week. And when Celtic drop points away at Dundee United, everyone stands up because it's such a shock. But Rangers it's not a shock anymore with Rangers when they go. I thoroughly expect them to beat Aberdeen on Wednesday night at Ibrox, but their next away trip, I've not even looked that far ahead, but their next away trip, a couple of weeks' time after the Scottish Cup.
No, they get Old Trafford in between.
Well, I heard these last night. That's another thing. I mean, if he manages to, they look like they're well on course for the latter stages of Europa League. But of course, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst got within a penalty kick of winning Europa League. We know what happened to him a few months later, so that won't really matter in the long run. It's all about the title.
Well, funny you say that, Fraser, because Van Bronckhorst is a name that's coming up in today's comment section. Joshua here says, Clement isn't the start and end of problems at Rangers. Problems run well deeper than that. The man in charge of the on-field stuff, always too quick to fire the gaffer. I think Van Bronckhorst, it's a similar thing here. This one as well. It was from Darren, who agrees, if I can find his comment, that Van Bronckhorst was kind of put out early. There you go. Gio, European final, let go early. And Keith, just to go back to what Fraser was saying there about the drop points over the festive period, there's obviously a lot more wrong with Rangers than Philip Clement, but surely those results are on Clement.
Yeah, 100%. And do you know something? That I understand the argument, right? And it's been well versed, this argument, that, and it's correct to an extent, that if you keep chopping and changing, you change a manager every 12 months, you can end up in a situation. Sunderland were the poster boy club for that down south, where they had so many sacked managers. They had a dressing room with players that were signed by about 5 or 6 different managers, which is a nightmare scenario, and Sunderland just about disappeared off the map because of it. And I get that, and that's a very real danger, and Rangers need to be aware of it. So I get, in principle, this idea that, you stick with the guy that you put in charge, you back him, you go through the thin times hoping that things get better. I get it all. I totally get it all. But see, in order for that to work, you have to be 100% convinced that the guy that you've got there is the right guy, that he is capable of doing the job, that he can manage to manage. And what you're seeing from Clement is proof that that's not the case. Why would you stick with somebody? And this is why Patrick Stewart, I think, boxed himself in a little bit, surprisingly, with his comments on Saturday. You're trying to tell the Rangers fans that black is white. Rangers fans have made up their mind. They've held their own root and branch review of Philip Clement, and they've found him not to be fit for purpose. But the guy that comes in as chief executive saying, nah, we know better than you guys, that's a dangerous road to go down right from the start. Rangers fans have seen enough of Clement to make their own judgment. And I'm surprised that Patrick Stewart was maybe allowed himself to get boxed in behind Philip Clement in this one, because if results go south not if they go south, if they continue in the sort of pattern they're in just now, which is indiscriminately losing points all over the place. If this continues for any length of time, Patrick Stewart very soon is going to have to do a reverse ferret and go against what he said, which makes his own judgment look flawed. So that's not great either. So yeah, I get it. Pick a manager, stick with him, but you have to be certain that you've got the right guy in order to do that. What I see with Clement is a guy that's creating his own problems. You know, we talk about those results, the drop points, Rangers going to Motherwell. He started with Cyril Dessers. Where did that come from? He started with Kieran Dowell. What was he thinking? And it was no surprise then when you get the results that he got at St Mirren and at Motherwell. He dropped Raskin for the St Mirren game. That's all on the manager.
Yeah.
That's nobody else's fault.
And Keith as well, I mean, to chime in just on what you were saying about Patrick Stewart, I feel like Clement does that double speak as well. We've talked about, I'm going to get, injuries won't be the same under me.
Well, that was just stupid, wasn't it?
You'll see the real Rangers October, November. You're setting yourself up for a huge fall. Like you say, Rangers fans have experienced just about every kind of manager in the modern era. They're not stupid. They can see through it.
Yeah, and as I said yesterday, they know what they like. They like what they see. They can identify a good manager. And a manager that looks capable of taking them places. They're going nowhere quick under Clement. The same way, by the way, as they're pretty directionless and rudderless at the top of the old staircase. It's a club that's going nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think what they're really hoping to see from Patrick Stewart is that, right, there's fresh eyes. Here's a guy that can come in, that can kind of make a quick survey all around about him and realise, right, here's areas that need to get changed, here's big decisions that need to be made. And he's kind of kicked the can down the road with his first kind of introduction to the Rangers supporters. And I think he might end up regretting that.
So, Fraser, in the comment section as well, Cuckoo Nastu says Rangers are like a one successful Man United, and fans can't handle now that they aren't successful and not winning all the time. And you spoke there about the kind of domination that Celtic have had this century. You've mentioned it as well on previous shows, Keith. I think there's a genuine fear among Rangers fans that they're going to develop into an Espanyol almost, like a secondary team in Glasgow. And for a club at Rangers, the size of them, the history of them, that just can't be acceptable.
That is the big fear, right? That's a big fear, and that's why I'm getting this impression. Could be completely wrong, but they've needed to take a step back in the short term and sort the club out. And that's not just throwing money. Throwing money at it is proven not to work. Look at a couple of summers ago when Michael Beale had that disastrous transfer window. All right, a couple of them come in and done okay, but wasted an awful lot of money that summer. They need to. I think they've stepped back this season. They're trying to reset that squad, bring the age down, try and bring in assets. Igamani has already proven to be one. In future, they need to find the exact right time to take offers to monetize these assets, to bring money in. It's the only way they're going to get close to Celtic. I mean, Celtic's model, we've mentioned it so many times recently. It's seen them streak miles ahead of the rest of Scottish football in terms and bank balances and titles won, everything. So what comes first? It's all chicken and egg argument, isn't it? I think they need to sort off the affairs off the park, sort out the bank balance, sort out the look of their squad, and then attack the football. But again, you can do all that and still get much, much closer to Celtic. As I said, the last two games against Celtic, they've got as close as you could hope. And it's just other games that they should still be winning, but they've let it slip away. So at this,
Fraser, here's the thing, right? I hear you, I get you. You're right. Okay, they need as I said, I keep saying it. They need a recalibration. 100% correct. None of that is Philip Clement's business. None of it. All he has to do is take care of the first team squad and put a winning team on the pitch consistently, and that has proven to be too much of an ask for him. And this is a club, by the way, that would perhaps, living on past glories, etc., etc. We talk about the current day reality since the turn of the century, how Celtic have absolutely monopolised the domestic scene in Scottish football. So yeah, there's an element of that. But the simple thing is, do you have a manager that you trust to pick the right team, to get the tactics right, to go out and win more games than he loses? And Rangers don't have that in Clement. And yes, I get it, mitigating factors in terms of they've taken some money off the wage bill, they're trying to bring in younger, fresher assets. I get it all. But Fraser, the wage bill that they are running dwarfs everybody else in the countries apart from Celtics. There is no excuse for having a manager who, even with cutbacks and cutting some costs, there's no excuse to have a manager who isn't capable of going into that squad, finding a team, fielding it, and winning, wiping the floor with everybody else. And he can't do that either.
Well, I'm not disputing that, right? And I'll go back a month and hold my hands up and said, at that point, I think it was before they beat Celtic, but I think it was around about Christmas time. And I think I said at that time I would stick with Philippe Clement. I think I referred to the fact he'd won 3 titles in Belgium with 2 different clubs. He's undoubtedly has been a good manager in the past, and he will be a good manager. But I just now, looking at what's happened since then, including taking that Celtic victory into account, I just wonder if Rangers too big for him, too difficult for him. If it's a bit of a poison chalice. I don't know. It's very hard to make a defence of the guy now, given the points we've shipped in that time, how far they've fallen off the title race after just 22 games. This summer, I think, will be very, very interesting, particularly if they don't win the Scottish Cup. Very interesting to see what's happening in the summer. I do thoroughly expect to see out this season. They've still got plenty to play for in Europe and that Scottish Cup, so it's not like they've failed on all fronts yet, but
well, they got to win the Europa League first.
No,
that's
but
not going to
the
happen.
Scottish Cup's there to be won, isn't it?
Wow. See if Rangers have reached that point now, where if you win a Scottish Cup, that's good. That's been a good return. What are you? 15 points behind Celtic in the middle of January? Not even the middle of January. That is a degrading of standards to an astonishing effect. And that can't be. If Rangers are to try and recover and to get back to be a credible force, a Scottish Cup and trailing Celtic by 15, 20, however many points it is by the end of the season, that should never be deemed acceptable.
It's always up for grabs, really, isn't it? That's all they can win this season, unless by all miracles of all miracles they go and win the Europa League. So that's as good as it can get.
No, but it shouldn't be acceptable. That being trailing Celtic in January by 15 points should be a sackable offence.
It's completely unacceptable. That's why I think this summer will be interesting. I don't expect to make a decision till this summer.
But see on that, Keith, as well, we had Andy Newport and Scott McDermott on from Dens Park the other night before Rangers draw with Dundee, and at the time it really surprised me. And I love Andy, but he said, "Look, I think if it gets to 20 points or so, they could look at Clement." And I thought to myself, is that really where we are? And if it is
that how far the standards dropped?
Aye, and if that is the case, what is the barometer for Clement then? What is he just? How do we know if he's done well between now and the end of the season if he's not 20 points behind?
And this feeds into what we were talking about with Patrick Stewart. I think he's not maybe properly read the room when he's come out and he's saying that we'll stick in with Clement for the time being, because I think the vast majority of Rangers fans don't see this as being even remotely close to acceptable. And yet he seems to be making a case for the defence as far as Philippe Clement is concerned. I don't know. It's as I said, I keep coming back to it. The club's in a mess. It's in a mess from top to bottom.
Succession plans, didn't he, Patrick Stewart, in his public address on
Saturday? He did.
He said that they have got one in place. I tell you, it'd be interesting to see your names on that list. Maybe now's not the right time. Maybe you have to wait for the right manager to come in. As the last 3 or 4 appointments have shown now, they've not been good enough to get close to Celtic.
But there is a collateral damage that is involved in that. If you tie your mast or nail your mast to Clement, and slowly but surely the support turns, whether it's apathy, whether they just don't turn up for the games, whether it's toxic, there's a cost that comes with all that for us. And I get what you're saying. You might look at it and say, well, we can wait here, we'll get the right man in the summer. But how much damage is going to be done in the 6 months up until that point? and does it become irreparable? Some of it will. So I think I'm not so sure that Rangers can fool themselves into thinking that they can sit and do nothing at this point. I think they need to be seen to act, and I think that's what I was expecting from Patrick Stewart, and what I still kind of suspect he'll end up having to do, whether he wants to or not.
This season? You mean during the season?
Yeah.
Aye. One manager out, another one in.
Yeah. I just the Rangers fans, the support has turned. They can't. They're no longer willing to tolerate it.
Do you know what you're bang on as well, saying about the apathy? Because I know I've got friends that are Rangers fans, and some didn't bother going yesterday. Some didn't. One particular didn't want to take his wee boy because he thought it was going to be utterly toxic.
Yeah.
So there are big problems there. You're absolutely right. Interesting to see what the crowd will be for that game against Aberdeen on Wednesday, because we all know what the rivalry is like there. I think that might be another full house.
You said as well, Keith, I think it'd be interesting the Fraserburgh game that's not on the season book.
Well, it certainly will be interesting if Rangers don't beat Aberdeen. Because by the time the Fraserburgh game comes around, that's what I said, there'll be more people standing outside the front door at Ibrox than there will be inside in the seats. Because that's where they're at right now.
Look, we could talk
down on the steps again.
Aye. we could talk about Rangers all night, but just before we finish, there's a couple of other little bits and bobs of transfer news that I wanted to get your guys' take on. First of all, Oluwaseun Adewumi has extended his stay at Dundee to the end of the season. I thought he was brilliant against Rangers the other day. Thought he looked like a player with a big future. But another one, guys, Calvin Ramsey has joined Kilmarnock.
Well, what a bit of business that is, by the way.
I was going to say, he's joined Kilmarnock on loan to the end of the season from Liverpool. I'm kind of surprised by that one.
I think it's a great bit, but I'm surprised in that you would have thought maybe Liverpool would be looking to farm him out, to certainly top end of the Championship.
Just been on loan to Wigan.
Yeah, he's been out on loan. So, yeah, but do you know what? They probably trust Derek McInnes. Derek knows the player very well. Maybe there's, I'm sure that would have influenced the discussions and might have helped in Kilmarnock's favour. But I think it's a terrific sign. I really do. If I was a Kilmarnock fan, I'd be absolutely thrilled by that one.
Aye. What do you think, Fraser?
Derek McInnes' signing record is far better than mine. I'm saying nothing on that one. No, nothing. Nothing. Not Calvin Ramsey.
No, do you know, fancy him for us?
Never have. Seen him too many times at Aberdeen. I like a fullback that can defend. That's all I'm saying. I don't know how many games he's played in the last few years. Look, I really hope I'm wrong. Young Scottish talent. Aberdeen won a watch with the figure they got for him. But not for me.
What was it? Like 5 million or something like that?
Unbelievable. Yep.
Let me just shock you.
He played for Wigan. I think he got a few appearances, but it didn't really work for him at Bolton either, did it?
He's played 12 games for Wigan so far this season.
Right, yeah, that's not bad. That's better than I thought then. Let
me just shock you, Fraser.
Young, very raw. What's that?
Let me just shock you.
Yeah.
I'll rather take Jurgen Klopp's guidance on this one than your own.
I don't know. Jurgen Klopp or Fraser.
Offended, mate. For me. So offended by that. You're quite right as well. Good luck, Calvin. I really hope it all works out.
Aye, hopefully he has the kind of impact that I'm sure Derek McInnes will be hoping he does. Look, guys, thanks so much for again today. That brings us to the end of Monday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. The comments, again, have been absolutely brilliant. Keep sending them in if you want to be part of the discussion. We'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Have they been keeping them clean, Daniel? Haven't they been looking?
I've got to be honest, they've actually been really good today. Aye, they're actually wanting to actually have a conversation and talk about things. So everyone watching, we really appreciate it. We appreciate the support. So thanks so much. And as I say, 6 o'clock tomorrow. Keith, Fraser, thank you so much.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.
Cheers.